Alright guys, welcome to the video, and if you're an Xbox player, welcome to Predecessor. Let's talk builds. Builds are complicated, and something I constantly see new players struggle with. Hell, even experienced players still seem to struggle as well. And let's be real, there currently is no reliable build site. That's where I come in. While there is no best build, as counter building and mid-game adjustments are always a factor, today I'm going to provide you with a one-size-fits-all kind of build for each jungler, and provide a small breakdown on the pros and cons of each of those characters for some of the newer players. While these builds may not be the single best build for every game, they will provide a good foundation and let the newer players focus on learning other aspects of the game while they play. I am going to be going through each jungler in alphabetical order, but timestamps will also be down below if you want to jump to a specific character that you want to see a build for. All that out of the way, let's jump right into Countess. She is the best level 1 invade, her Shadow Slip ability, the strongest burst ability for at least jungle monsters. It did get mitigated a bit with the ability to pull camps and see hunt threshold, so it is not as easy to invade, but still very easy. High burst, strong 1v1, not a lot of characters out 1v1 this character if she's on pace or ahead. Her snowball potential is insane. When this character is ahead, she is scary. The cons, her objective clear, one of the worst in the games. Her she struggles to clear Fang Tooth, she struggles to clear Orb Prime. She's very bad from behind. If this character's not one-shotting, she's not doing a whole lot. Lack of CC, she only has two forms, a slow, and then a suppression, which the suppression is tied to her ult, which is also interruptible. Now jumping into the build, what you're going to be running most of the time in your crest slot is Obelisk. You want to scale into the late game, you want to be strong, Obelisk is your best scale option. You'll sometimes see Bruiser Countess with Tempest, though in jungle I don't think it's a great option. First, I like to go Spirit of Ymir. Great to help you sustain in jungle team fights and play around that a bit more, as well as giving you very strong ganks once you've completed your first item, where ideally you've been farming a lot, maybe you're ahead, you've been invading, now you're looking to gank, get off some one-shots or some two-shots. The passive, which enhances your damage in lane, super great. Megacosm's there to kind of help you with that objective. Megacosm also just a good item, has some CDR. Tainted Scepter, again, you're looking for one-shot potential. The true damage from it is massive. Then you're going to Caustica for percent pen and Oblivion Crown to even further augment your insane late game. Now let's jump into Crunch. Crunch has a ton of CC. He is a character that's capable of doing what I call putting you through the spin cycle, which is where you're just locked down by CC, you're getting pushed around, you're getting knocked up, you're getting stunned. Crunch has insane mobility. He's either the fastest or second fastest, like in terms of traveling across the map in the game, with his ability to dash and then do the enhanced dash from his ult. He does output magical and physical damage, which is a great resource, and he's super flexible in his builds. You can go a more bruisery build, you can go this build, you can go full tank, you can, people have been running full magical Crunch, which I think is a little goofy, but hey, you know, everyone likes their own thing. I think that's an EU thing or whatever. Now, the weaknesses to Crunch, pre-level 6, he's got a very weak pre-level 6 fight. He does kind of rely on his ult. His ult doesn't really help team fights all that much. It's still a great ult, but he's not one-shotting somebody. He's not mass CCing a group of people. He's not spreading out damage. His ults kind of just helps him augment whatever he is doing in a team fight, so you're not getting a big moment play out of Crunch. I don't love how I worded this, but this is, I guess, how I decided to fit it on the graphic. Setup needed. So every third ability Crunch does after level 6 gets an enhanced version. So when you're doing the uppercut, it becomes a knock-up. If you're doing the dash, it's an enhanced dash. With that being the case, sometimes you have to wait for cooldowns. Sometimes, you know, a misclick happens. If you're a newer player, you gotta plan in advance, and that's something you have to be mindful of. Now, jumping into the build. This is the build that I find I most commonly run. Witch Stalker. Crunch weaves autos a lot, so getting in an like the Witch Stalker enhanced auto can be a big hit if you're timing it with your augmentation. But a lot of the time, Crunch struggles against CC. So against CC comps with like Riktor, for example, Riktor does great against Crunch. Witch Stalker, you pop that on his ult, Now all of a sudden you got a Riktor standing still, and you do decent damage to people with high HP pools, because first item we're running is Mutilator. Crunch struggles pre-6, in my opinion, just farm, only take easy ganks. You don't need an item that augments your early game, your pre-6. So you're looking for Bloodletter. If the goal falls right, you can go for the Temporal Ripper and get more CDR. Great stats for Crunch, Omnivamp, CDR, max HP damage, you got some sustain going. I think that is great for Crunch early game. Then we go into Augmentation, where we start getting online. Now we're getting our Spell Slasher, now we're in Augmentation doing big damage, more CDR. Then we're going to Absolution, which Absolution sounds weird, but you get some Tenacity, or some CCR, Crowd Control Reduction, if you're more familiar with that term. And attack speed strangely works on Crunch's abilities. So his left crunch and right crunch, or the hook and the uppercut, will actually, the animation will play out faster with attack speed. So Augmentation ends up being a great option for Crunch. And we're going to Citadel, getting our defense now. Also providing some armor reduction for the enemy. And then Curious Last. Curious Last is always kind of awkward to build. It never feels great, but Curious is such a strong item and does help Crunch late game, where he can sometimes struggle in big team fights. You know, Gadget ult really hurts, Gideon ults, and these all kind of help. Next up, Feng Mao. Very mobile character, both with a dash and a speed boost. An Execute, which is insanely valuable. Even if you're behind, an Execute always brings value to the table. It's a one ability that if someone's low health, they're not getting out anymore, because even though you're a mile behind, you still had an Execute. Executes in this game I find not as valuable as in other MOBAs, but it is still worth noting. Feng Mao, another snowball character. This one I think even higher than Countess. If this character gets ahead, especially with his ability to generate a shield, he'll one-shot people, he'll bob and weave in a team fight, get in, get out with bodies. He is super scary from behind. He also has a very strong invade. Feng Mao clears very well when you get Mind Razor, which we'll talk about later. Super safe, super mobile, can go vertically. Solid invade, hard to chase him out of your jungle. The downside is to Feng Mao, he has no real CC. He has a slow tied to his hamstring, the little spin ability. Outside of that, no CC. And if you CC a Feng Mao, if a Feng Mao dashes in, you hit him with a Rampage Rock or Steel Stun, usually means death. Now, for a build, when we're talking about Crest, you can typically go really any of the three in the Assassin tree. I find most often you'll be going next. The whole point of this character is you want to get in, do a bunch of damage, get out. So next helps augment that, gets you in range of the Execute, gets their health in range of the Execute. First item, 99% of the time you're running Mind Razor, helps his clear, helps his mana issues. Very strong item, gives you haste. Not much more to say. Now for the rest of this build, honestly, from what I've been seeing, now I'm not a big Feng Mao guy. For the most part, you can run this in any order. Pretty much any of the pen items are really good. Pain Weaver I find always really good, helps you just move around even faster. Good stats, CDR, flat pen. Envy lets you proc the passive off of his dash. Omen is a core item on Feng Mao, and Perforator for percent pen. Now Perforator is flat pen, so there's viability in moving it forward more. Infernum is an option now that it has flat pen to deal with tanks. What are some other flat pen items? I was thinking about this earlier, but you can pretty much... Oh, Mesmer. If you're struggling with CC, getting hit by spells, Mesmer is also an option. But this is the build that I'm running currently, just moving Perforate around as needed. Moving on to Greystone. Greystone has great survivability. One of the character with probably the most staying power in all of Predecessor. Pretty naturally tanky. Defensive passive, being able to just completely nullify an attack. An ultimate that basically is the second life, if done correctly, bringing you from about, you know, a quarter HP back up to 3/4 or even full. Greystone has a solid invade. He's got decent mobility. He has verticality with his jump, able to get over a lot of the jungle walls. Again, going back to the survivability, you can take a lot of hits, you can get that full reset, give you more time to get out. Great anti-burst, or again, the same reason. Hey, These characters that are looking to one-shot you, Bellicas, Countess, other characters that are escaping my mind right now, Feng Mao's, they're gonna have to kill you twice. They don't want to cycle their cooldowns more than once in a fight. So you get those big cooldowns dumped on you, all of a sudden you're full HP and they have nothing. And lastly, it's just super easy to play. Super easy character pickup. Anyone can play Greystone to good effect. Now, on the downsides, Greystone has virtually no CC. All he has is a slow. No hard CC. Not a great thing for junglers. Obviously, with that being said, he has pretty poor lockdown. Any character with mobility is almost certainly getting away from Greystone. But again, we're just stacking. The bad is kind of just because of other bad. Greystone's gank is not great. If you don't have CC in your lane, you'll see this commonly with duo lane. If your support's running Muriel, it is so hard to gank for that because you have no hard CC. No one's getting locked down. There's not a huge window for you or your ADC to deal damage. If we're having like a Gideon mid, the only CC you have between the two of you is 2 slows. So a lot of the time, the enemy can just get away. Right now, Greystone has incredibly unhealthy clear. His first clear or two is leaving him sub half HP. And now, when we're going to talk about the build, you're going to typically be going tank crest. I go Sapphires a lot. You can go Razorback or even Near. If you're going another crest, either Assassin Crest or Fighter Crest have seen usage in the past. Right now, that just leaves you very low health. Tank Crest helps mitigate that with the health regen. Next, you're going to go for your clearing item, so you're going to go Fire Blossom. Pretty standard, scales with HP, so synergizes with Sapphires. Helps you get your clear, builds up some physical armor. Then we're going into Basilisk, so you can deal damage, shred some tanks, help your teammates do damage. Then we're going Elefrost to help with that poor lockdown. You're getting the slow effect, you're dealing a bit more extra damage. We're scaling the Elefrost with the HP from Sapphires, so you're actually doing a fair bit of damage in sustained fights. Then we're going into our most common magic armor option right now, which is Curious, to help get us out of bad situations with long-lasting magical effects. Now, if they're going burst mages, you might pivot into something different, like a Void Helm, perhaps, or an Unbroken Will. But usually, you're going Curious. And then lastly, Stonewall. A lot of the time on Greystone, you're trying to get in there. If the enemy team has a lot of CC, and they're locking you out of your ult, that stun from Stonewall could make or break. Could be that one thing that helps you get your ult off before you die. My PC crashed last time I tried to record those parts, so let's see if it works this time. Let's talk about Grux. Grux, one of the best tank shredders in the game, completely eats Khaimera, Greystone, Riktor, Rampage. Steel is kind of a different story, but that's mostly because of his CC and mobility. Grux is a character that is capable of putting you single-handedly through the spin cycle, similar to Crunch. The uppercut knockup, the pull, the alt stun. Grux is probably the best 1v1 champion. All of Predecessor. He completely beats out all of the other characters that I have said are, and will say are good 1v1 characters. He completely beats out Khaimera, beats out Countess, beats out Feng Mao, beats out everybody. Taking out Grux is you either have to space him properly, or it's a team effort, like a 2-man or more effort. Now the cons of Grux: bad gank, awful gank. Every gank is a walk at him gank. Sure, you have blink to engage, but that's on a 5-minute cooldown, and do you really want to use your blink for that? Everything Grux does is so incredibly telegraphed. His dash is hardly a dash, so he has no mobility to help him gank. His pull is incredibly slow, and obvious that he's going to go for it. His ult is melee range. Everything he does is it's just walk at him. Now, going into the build, Ice Scorn Talons is your best crest. I should have put in pros that he's a great objective shredder, because he is, and Ice Scorn helps with that. Ice Scorn helps you with the 1v1s. Ice Scorn helps you when you put a whole team through the spin cycle, because you get a big pull. Outside of that, you're going to go Brutal Axe, which Grux is one of the few characters Brutal Axe works on, because the lifesteal is actually pretty good. But most time, you're going to be running Ice Scorn. So, this build, you can kind of mix and match, move things around. I like Sky Splitter. It gives you a lot of clear speed, some tank shred, and objective clear. It lets you go for early Fangtooths, which are huge, early Orb Primes. Then we're moving into Basilisk. More tank shred. This gets you some CDR. Grux has very long cooldowns. Gives you some HP, so some tankiness. Then we're going into, in my opinion, Bonesaw. I like third. So we're going to, with our second and third item, we're starting to get into the bruisery side with the HP. Bonesaw, the same thing. We got some ramping attack speed for longer fights now as we're getting into the mid-game. Fights are extending. Objectives are taking longer to clear if you're soloing them anyway. Or you're doing Orb Prime. Stonewall, when you're on Grux, a lot of the time you are in there and you are committed, so the Stonewall stun is huge. The health regen's pretty nice. And Cuirass. Cuirass is what you're going to be running as your magical defense option most of the time on Grux, because again, once you're in there, a lot of the time you're committed. And Cuirass is the best. It's the best magical armor item if you are taking damage for a longer period of time. Now, one of my personal favorite junglers, I think this is one of the most fun characters in the game, and in my opinion, the best character to play in public matches if you want to grind the leaderboards. Kallari. The pros to Kallari. Kallari has insane mobility. The speed boost she gets in stealth. The triple jump, which is insanely strong. Her ult also being able to be used as a mobility device to be used as a dash. She gets a movement speed from her mark ability. Insane mobility. Kallari is so fast and hard to chase down. Kallari has the best burst in the game, the best single burst. There's no other character who comes close to her. Part of that is tied to her ult, which actually grants her the best secure in the game. It is between Kallari and Steel for my most successful objective steals. Kallari's ult, if you walk up to an objective, mark it with your knife, then ult and hunt right at the same time, it goes from a 1000 damage to secure to like a 2.5k damage secure. It is insane. And then we mentioned it before, but stealth, it's a huge utility to have stealth in a MOBA, and especially one like Predecessor, where there's so many different angles you can come from. Now, with the good comes the bad. Kallari, not a great tank shredder. I will say, this has changed quite a bit with the recent item balance. Infernum, an anti-tank item that now has flat pen, which Kallari needs. Perforator, a percent pen item, which was already okay on Kallari, is now better on Kallari because it got flat pen. Kallari's stealth, health regen, scales with flat pen, so you're getting more health regen for building these two items that are super helpful at dealing with tanks. Infernum in general is a really strong item for Kallari right now. She is also single target. Nex kind of mitigates that a bit. You can do some AoE damage. If you're lucky, you can line people up for a big ult, but outside that, she's mostly single target. She dies incredibly fast. One stun and it's pretty much over. And she has no hard CC. The only CC she even has is the slow from her knives. Going into the build, Nex is by far your best option on a Kallari. You want to go in, you want to kill somebody, you want to leave. Nex provides burst as well as a bit of movement to position around in a fight or to be used to flee a situation. First time we're going as Malady. Big burst option, lets you scale into the late game. The more kills, or usually the more kills is the case, the more stacks you have. 1 stack equals 5 power currently. It's not a lot, but it does ramp up. Infernum, great anti-tank option. CDR, flat pen. Next, going into Vanquisher, more flat pen. The crit doesn't really matter. You're more so getting this for the passive, which executes enemies below 6% HP, which a lot of the time you'll have an enemy running away, you stealth, you chuck a knife, hits them, boom, Vanquisher proc, you call it a day. Perforator, anti-tank option. The slow on it, I really don't like the passive on this item. You're more so just getting it for the percent pen. And then your last item, you could pretty much go any flat pen item. Mesmer's not a bad option if you need the spell shield. Painweaver, Omen even. I'm just going Envy because Envy's kind of a fun item. It's more or less interchangeable. Up next, we have Khaimera. Khaimera has incredibly high sustain with a passive that gives him ramping health regen in sustained fights. He has incredibly fast clear with his auto attack stim combined with Overlord. One of the easiest, if not the easiest, junglers to play. If you are looking to pick up this game and jump into your first game and pick jungle, Khaimera is the character you should be picking. He also has the cleanse. So if you get CC'd, you can just pop that cleanse. It's, for what it does, is on a relatively short cooldown, as well as you're going to be building CDR in the build to get on an even shorter cooldown. On top of it being a cleanse, it's also health regen, insanely good ability. Now his cons, he doesn't have an escape, so once you're in there, a lot of the time you are in there until the end. You're jumping on some people in a team fight, you are committing, you are swinging, you are getting your health regen up, and you are fighting it till the end. Khaimera, also single target. It's very rare that you're hitting multiple people. Overlord will get you some AoE damage. Your ult, you may catch multiple targets, but think of this character purely as a single target damage character. Kai also kind of struggles pre-6. Not super hard because he does have a jump to close gap. That jump does give him a slow. He can cleanse CC, so chasing characters down like Faye, which is hard for other characters, is actually kind of easy for Khaimera. The only issue is pre-6, he has no hard CC. Once you hit 6, you have a massive suppression, or actually, I don't believe it's a suppression. I think it is just a stun. You have a massive stun that does a fair chunk of damage, and once you're pre-6, once you hit 6, you are... Sorry, not once you're pre-6. Once you hit level 6 and you're post-6, your ganks are very, very strong on Khaimera. I like to go Sapphires. You can go near War Boots. You can go Razorback, but we're building items that are going to scale with HP. So we're going to be seeing Overlord to help you with your jungle clear, get more damage out of your scaling HP. Basilisk, Tank Shred, it's just the best item in the game. It shreds everybody. It's got CDR, it's got HP, it's got physical power. Then we're going to go into Elefrost. Helps lock people down. Lets you build more damage while also building more HP and physical armor. Then we're going to go into our classic Cuirass, because we are committing, we're expecting to take magical damage for long periods of time, stacking up our Cuirass. And then, again, similar to what we've seen with other junglers that I've talked about, where you were committing, we're wanting to get Stonewall, HP regen, and a stun, because you were committed, you're in the fight for the long haul, you're probably passing that HP threshold to get the value, or to get the proc of the stun, which in turn, you should be able to turn into big value. Now let's talk about Predecessor's newest jungler, Kwang. Kwang has incredibly strong CC. He has arguably the strongest single CC in the game, being his tether. It's a ranged CC that you cannot escape outside of a cleanse. So you have to burn a crest or be Khaimera. Flashes don't even get you out of it, which then you chain into a knockup, which, while knockups are not as strong in Predecessor as they are in Smite or other MOBAs, there's still a strong CC. Kwang has healthy clear, super healthy clear. As long as you're not building something incredibly throw, he has one of the healthiest clears in all the Predecessor, and the clear time is not half bad. His gank setup is one of the best in the game if you can pull it off. The tether, we're going back to the tether, it's just such an insanely strong ability. You're able to get off all of your burst, your ult, you can teleport into lane onto the tether. With that being said, all of this is very high skill. This character is hard to execute, and admittedly his kit is incredibly awkward, which both makes it high skill and also kind of makes it feel bad. His ult feels really, really unfortunate. I wish there was CC immunity to it, so if you're trying to use it in a team fight, it gets cancelled most of the time. His sword being able to be recalled with left click is super awkward, and I've honestly fought the devs about it on my opinion, and they refuse to change it. It is what it is. So be it. He just has an incredibly high skill and very awkward kit. But let's get into the build. So typically you're going to be running, I think by far the best option is Tempest. I am adamant it's Tempest. You'll see a lot of people run the Tank Crest with Sapphires or even Razorback. I think that's a big grief. I just think Tempest is stronger. You get a lot of damage. You get good sustain. It's a good time. Fire Blossom, you need your clear item. Fire Blossom is the strongest clear item in the game. It's a sustained fight item. It gives you physical armor, which you need early game in jungle. It's just always, most of the time, on junglers that are tanky or bruisery, the de facto best first item. Then we're going into Tainted Scepter. Tainted Scepter, another one of the best items in the game. True damage is absurd. You're a magical bruiser. True damage is insane. Flux Matrix, you are getting tankier, you're getting HP, you're getting MR, as well as dealing more magical damage. And on top of that, you are reducing the enemy's tenacity, which I'm honestly not 100% sure if it applies to your tether, but it does apply to any CC that your team is bringing to the table. World Breaker, Kwang does suffer from the ability from having to be kind of dive heavy and not having any CC immunity in his kit, so he is pretty susceptible to stuns. So getting some tenacity from World Breaker is pretty strong. Again, you're doing more damage, which scales off your HP, which we're building a lot of HP here, as you can see. Your last item's kind of flex. I've been liking Giant's Ring a lot. You're getting your cooldowns off more. You're getting some damage mitigation. And you're getting bigger, which, when you're a bruiser, isn't a bad thing, because then you're able to block more damage from your team, but also it increases the size of your AoEs, so your ult can be bigger. Well, actually, yeah, your ult will be bigger because you'll get the effect from the ring. Your right click covers more of an area. Giant's Ring, I just think it has been consistently my best 5th item slot option. Rampage. Rampage is a very interesting character who's been at the forefront of jungle since the release of this game. I've decided to go with a very interesting build as my one-size-fits-all build, and we'll talk about it in a bit. But Rampage, a fantastic tank, one of the greatest tanks to ever grace this game, especially in jungle. He has the single best stun in the game, a ranged, at max level, 2-second stun. It's absurd. It's not hard to hit. It's pretty big. You can throw it far. It's absurd. As long as this character has this stun, they can nerf this character to the ground, and he will always be, he'll be at worst A tier. Rampage has great mobility. His jump is insane. It's like, if you've ever played Overwatch, it's like Winston jump. It goes pretty damn far. It can go vertically, and you can cancel it to land shorter, which also deals damage. And if you ult, the jump goes even further. His ganks, we're talking about that rock, that 2-second stun, the mobility. He has a slow in his kit. This character just, he has it all. Except for damage, and that's his only con. This character doesn't do a ton of damage, but when we go to the build, we'll talk about how this character can do damage. First crest, you're going tank crest. There is a flavor of the month right now, which is going Ice Scorn Talons, which I will say has some merit, but not if you're going to do this build. So we're going Razorback to do a bit of damage. We reflect some damage, we get some damage mitigation. First item, Basilisk. We've talked about it before. We'll talk about it again. Best item in the game. You get CDR. You're stunning more often. You're getting HP. Basilisk is just, it's such an absurdly broken item. Basilisk also applies twice on Rumble, which is your main clear ability, where you bang the ground twice. Because the ability does hit twice, you do apply 2 stacks of Basilisk. So you do stack it fairly quickly. Well, quicker than you would think with this character. Then we're going into Tainted Guard. So this is a great anti-heal option build, but great in general. You're reflecting more damage. You are doing yet even more damage to mitigate this character's lack of damage. So now we're doing a lot. You're getting hit by Akira, and all of a sudden you pop Razorback, and now she's dead. Like that's what we're talking about here. You're against a Khaimera. He Qs you, he's hitting you with autos, you pop Razorback, all of a sudden he's dead. When you go 1 Tainted, a lot of the time you end up going 2 Tainted, so we're going Tainted Bastion, so we can stack up on both physical and magical damage dealers, as well as get our damage mitigation from having the anti-heal stacked up on all these characters. Then I like to go into Giant's Ring. We get our cooldowns faster, we get more mitigation in our ult, That's what we want. We become bigger, we become a bigger wall, we want to take less damage, right? And then we just need some magical armor item. I threw Void Helm in here. You get more healing from your ult. You get some HP. You get some anti-burst MR. You could really go any MR option there. There's currently not a lot in the game, so I just went Void Helm. Riktor. I both love and hate this character in jungle. Riktor, he is great. He is the ultimate pick champ. Like, you pick Riktor to get picks. That's what this character does. You throw a hook, you hit somebody, they're getting picked. He's also a great secure champ. Not a lot of characters can out-secure Riktor. Your 1k smite with hook, it does percent health damage to camps. You're hooking at, like, you're securing at 1.5k. Very easy to time, very predictable, like, for your team. You're super in control of a 50-50 hunt situation, especially because if the enemy jungler jumps in early, you do have the silence as well. Riktor also has the best solo CC chain in the game. Hook, that's a stun and displacement, pulls them to you. If your ult is up, it is a suppression. Crowd control reduction does not affect suppressions. They are stuck for the full duration no matter what, unless they cleanse. So a crest or a chimera. And then on top of that, you have the silence, which is a fairly long silence, though I think they just nerfed it this patch, to prevent crest usage, to prevent flashes, to prevent any sort of retaliation. Insane CC chain. Now, his cons, he has no escape. He has some decent mobility buff, but he's a very big target, super easy to get locked down by stuns, super susceptible to slows, getting body blocked. He has no verticality, really. He's also easy to invade. He does not deal a ton of damage, and for him to do really any notable damage, he has to hit the hook, which is a very high skill shot. If a Riktor is surprised, hook isn't easy to hit. If you're a Khaimera and you get hooked, you just cleanse it. If you're a character who has a cleanse crest, you just cleanse it. If you're a character like Greystone, you just take the hook and eat it because he doesn't have any friends around to deal the damage. Now all of his CC's down, so when his friends do show up, he's just a useless body. Hook is everything. If you miss the hook, you're not a character. Outside of a few niche scenarios where you're close enough to ult, then sure. But if you're in that situation, you're probably ulting, then taking the free hook anyway. Your hook is everything. If it's not up, you're not much of a character. If you miss it, fight's over. But people still like playing this man jungle. I love him. I think he's super fun. Let's talk about build. So for this build, I'm going to present another HP scaling build. I think you're catching a trend of we like those currently. We're going Sapphires. Near Boots is an interesting tech to give you some more movement speed so you can catch people on some like weird alt ganks. Razorback, another popular choice, but for this we're going to go Sapphires. Fire Blossom, Fire Blossom, Fire Blossom. We need Clear, we need Fire Blossom. Then we're going to go into Elefrost. Riktor loves weaving autos. He is a tank that just loves to weave autos. You'll see some Oathkeeper builds. Elefrost is very, very common on Riktor. Hook, auto. There's your Elefrost proc. Alt, auto, Elefrost proc. Silence, auto, Elefrost proc. Dead, usually. It helps his CC chain even further. Great damage. Again, we're scaling more HP. Next, we're going to go into Worldbreaker. In jungle, a lot of the time, it is very helpful to do damage. So, Worldbreaker. You're around the people, your Static Shock procs Worldbreaker very quickly. Fantastic Riktor item. I think the premier character for Worldbreaker is actually Riktor. I think he's the character who gets the most value out of it. Unless we're talking Countess of yesteryear, I think Riktor is the premier Worldbreaker character. Then, also, that's not even mentioning the tenacity he gets from it, which is super helpful for Riktor. Then we're going into, you guessed it, Cuirass as our magical armor item. And now, for the first time we've seen in these builds, Raiment of Renewal. We're trying to get some more CDR worked into the build. You're entirely relying on one ability, so the more that one ability can be up, the better. we're really focused on scaling our HP. We're really focused on scaling our HP and abusing that HP and turning it into damage output. Moving on to Serath, who I think is currently the worst jungler in Predecessor. Now, I have to be nice. So her pros are she has great chase down, arguably the best chase down in all of Predecessor. She has a pretty decent, like, weird jump slash dash ability, which can traverse vertically. Sometimes the ability can be frustrating and misleading, but just get good at the game, I guess. She does have an ability which you target an enemy and you're basically tethered to them and are immune to damage or immune to being targeted, and you just follow them. So you can follow dashes, you can follow blinks. If you know an enemy's kit, this ability is very easy to abuse. Her objective clear is fantastic. She's one of the fastest clears of Fangtooth and or Prime. While her jungle clear is not absurd, her boss clear is really fast. To her credit, she is the best kill chainer in the game. If Serath can get on top of a dead body and get her passive ultimate, she can chain that into a double kill, a triple kill, a quad, a penta, easy. This is while being one of the worst junglers in the game, one of the easiest characters to get a penta on, if not the easiest. Now her cons, other than being poorly balanced, she has no CC. Her only CC is a slow, and it's not even that notable of a slow, and she is single target. Thankfully, she does have high enough damage output to turn that single target damage into rapidly single target damage on a different target. It is still single target, so you have to kind of pick and choose your battles. So I should have also added as a con, she is made of paper mache. You get hit, you're dead. So for items, we're gonna go Liberator. So if we do get CC'd, we at least have the chance. We can cleanse it, get the shield. The shield is also usable in a losing 1v1 to help turn a fight. I should mention this character if you don't know what they are heavily auto attack based. Then we're going to go into Stormbreaker, helps her with her jungle clear, which she does kind of struggle with. And when we get into the multiple camps, so the 5s, the 2s, the 3s, and the 4s. It is also just maybe not the best because of Basilisk, but at least in the top 2 or top 3 first item 1v1 items in the game. Stormbreaker is incredibly strong. The attack speed is so good, the passive is so good. Then we're going to go into Basilisk. Undeniably the best item in the game. I've explained it before. I don't really want to explain it again. Sky Splitter, we're looking to augment more into her auto attack power. Sky Splitter's massive for that. Helps her with the Orb Prime, Fangtooth. Going into Kingsbane now because we're looking to get some sustain. Fights are getting a bit harder for Serath to take in the late game because you're either running into impenetrable walls that are taking you too long, or you're running into team fight situations where people are there to help the targets that you're trying to burst down. And then last time we're going Stonewall. She really struggles late game if she's not ahead, or if she's just even. Like, if the game has gotten to this point where you are building your last item, the game is in a really bad spot for you as a Serath. So we're picking up the Stonewall, so when we do get in these prolonged fights that we don't necessarily want to be in, we'll have that stun to hopefully buy us that short window to get the kill and then chain that into a team wipe. Sevarog, a very interesting jungler that if you go back to my roots, back in Paragon, was one of the only 2 characters that I played, him and Khaimera. His pros, he's got very healthy clear, part of that due to Siphon being his main clear ability healing him. He has incredible CC, so incredible CC. A route that range and that big of an area should be illegal, but here we are. He has great gank setup. Again, with the ranged route, he has a pretty long range dash, which actually has a controllable range. If you don't know, if you're holding W, it will go max range. If you're not holding anything, it'll go like a medium range. If you're holding S, it'll go very short. So on top of that, he does also have his ultimate, the baseball swing, the home run. Convenient that I'm recording this opening day of the MLB. But the home run, super strong CC, massive displacement CC, pretty easy to get off in tangent with your root. Now the cons, his early game. His early game is just farming for the most part. And if you're not 6, your gank isn't amazing because you don't really have damage output. The whole point of Sevarog is scaling. It's a lot easier to scale in lane than it is in jungle. You have to be on top of your farm. You have to be on top of your rotations. If you're not, you are going to fall behind on Sevarog and you're going to do nothing. You're going to be a mobile root. Yeah, I shouldn't even say it's that bad because it's really not. He also has 0 verticality. There is nothing you can get over. He has no jump. He has no teleport. He has no hop. He just has a wiggle, a little wiggle dash, and that's it. Which means he isn't great for invading, which is unfortunate because if he was great for invading, the stacking wouldn't be such a problem. So let's talk about build. We're going Razorback. You can go Sapphires. I don't think it's particularly smart on Sevarog right now because people are gonna... ADCs are just gonna eat you up. An ADC wants to see you and they want to kill you. You are the ADC's problem if you were a Sevarog. You want to mitigate that, get Razorback. Fire Blossom. Shocking. Hey, we're a tank that needs to clear. We should probably get Fire Blossom. Ella Frost. I've said it before. It helps you lock down further. You're getting damage as the jungler while also scaling your HP and getting physical armor online. Sorry if I just hit my mic there. Curus, I really like in this slot on Sevarog. It really helps mitigate gadgets and Gideons, which you may struggle with. You're a lot of the time using your dash to get into a fight. Can get you caught by a gadget ult, can get you caught by a Gideon ult. Howitzer's pretty problematic if he goes Megacosm. This helps with that as well. Void Helm is also a very good option here. You could go Void Helm. Honestly, a lot of the time I do go Void Helm in this slot. Then I'm moving into World Breaker. Sevarog comes online late game. So this is where you're going to see a bit of a reverse of what we've been seeing up to this point and what we'll see later. World Breaker is coming in at 4 because now you should have your stacks online. You're looking to do damage. You have a ton of HP. Let's get in there. Let's swing. The tenacity, always a nice little added bonus. And then this is going to be a weird one. I like Lifebinder. You're doing a lot of damage at this point in the game. You should be max stacks. You get some ability haste. You get to heal. You get some raw damage. I don't entirely know why, but this item just feels really good in this slot, and I just give it a shot. And so the time has come where we reach my favorite character and predecessor, Shinbi. Shinbi is an amazing farmer. One of, if not the best farmers in the game. She clears so fast. She moves around the map so fast. Super easy to build a massive CS lead, both in the early game and even continuing into late. I didn't put it here. She is a great split pusher. As a jungler, you have to be very, very careful about when and why you're split pushing. She scales super well in the late game, which works well with her ability to farm. She is super, super strong into the late game. She also has build diversity. So what I'm showing is a full offensive build, but she does also work very, very well with a bruiser build, which I think is something people need to start exploring more again. Now her cons, her early game's pretty weak. Her pre-6 is actually abysmal. Honestly, until she gets her first item and a crest, she is very weak. She does a great job at applying item passives. We're talking like Megacosm, Wraith Leggings, Combustion kind of, though you never really see that run on her. She does a great job of proccing these item abilities and abusing crests. So that's why her early game kind of struggles. She also has no CC. Literally none. She doesn't have a slow. She doesn't have anything. Now, let's talk about items. I go Obelisk in this build. Tempest is fine both in this build and in a Bruiser build. But with this, we really want to scale into the late game. Obelisk is your scaling option. That auto will do a ton of damage. You'll be swinging people for half their HP. Pop an ult, killing them. Megacosm, she does struggle to clear jungle bosses. This helps, as well as she just does such a great job of applying Megacosm. You want to scale in the late game, you want to farm. Megacosm is the best mage farming item. Next, we're going into Spirit of Amir. Shinbi does work really well with lifesteal, so when we're talking about sustained jungle fights for objectives, we like that bonus lifesteal. When we're ganking, we want to burst, get in, get out, go back to farming. Really fast, secure kills. Wraith Leggings. Wraith Leggings is fantastic on Shinbi. You want to bob and weave in fights. The passive movement speed from Wraith Leggings helps you do that, as well as Shinbi has an execute ult. Not in the traditional sense where if they're below certain XP they die, but you're Shinbi ulting to finish off targets. They're low health, they're out of the fight, you've popped your 4-stack, 6-stack, whatever stack ult, and now you're killing them. Wraith Leggings synergizes with that so well. It's crazy how much damage Shinbi ult does in the mid to late game with Wraith Leggings up. Then we're going to Caustica. Now we can start giving our blue buff away to our mid laner if we want. We won't have mana problems, as well as now we're getting our percent pen online so we can do damage to tanks in the late game. And then we're just going into Oblivion Crown. It's the single strongest mage item in the game. You want to build it late game, it's incredibly expensive. And once you're at this point in the game, you are just absolutely one-shotting. Anyone you weren't one-shotting for some reason, you are now one-shotting with Oblivion Crown. When I was making this list, I was working under, I'm only going to do junglers that appear on the jungler tab. When I opened it, I was very disgusted to find that Steel was not there. So this is the one exception to the rule, Steel, who is a fantastic jungler. And has been since day one. He's had his moments, but he's good again. Was good back in the day. So, Steel, he is insane CC. He is known for his obnoxious CC. He has a mobile dash knockup. He has a stun. He has a slow, which on top of that slow, it's a wall that projectiles can't pass. He then has another mobile stun, well, stun and knockup with his ultimate. Absurd solo CC chain. These CCs hit multiple people. He's just a menace. He's a fantastic tank. This is the one character that I think is actually a better tank than Rampage. He's also anti-siege. We already talked about the wall. You can just wall people off from hitting inhibitors, or hitting core, or even hitting towers. This is the anti-siege character, and currently the only real one that we have. I guess you could kind of maybe count Riktor, but I would say it's just Steel currently. He's great from behind. If you fall behind, hey, guess what? You could be 4 levels behind. Do you know what you still have? A knockup, a stun, and a knockup stun. And a slow, that's a wall. No matter what level you are, as long as you're level 6 or above, you have all of those things. You are never not a character as Steel. Now the cons are, his 1v1's really bad. That being said, he's super easy to invade. A lot of the time you can just bully him out of his own jungle. So he does rely a lot of the time on his side lanes being relevant. If you have a side lane that's really struggling and you can't help them get back in the game, a lot of the time you just have to forfeit that side of the jungle, unfortunately. He also has really slow clear. Even Fire Blossom doesn't really help him. His clear does not fully come online until you're 2 items in with this exact build that we're doing here. Speaking of which, let's talk about the build. I'm going Razorback. You could go Sapphires. I find that I don't really get as enough value as on Sapphires on Steel as I do just going purely Razorback and just being tankier. You can also go Phoenix. That's a bit more of a niche strat, but it is something you can do and play around with. I highly recommend trying it. So we're just going to go with Razorback. Again, we're talking about it. We're a tank. We want to clear. We need Fire Blossom. Then we're going to go into Elefrost. Again, more CC. Why not? Absolutely. We're getting more power. We're getting... we're also a character, while not known for auto-weaving, now that Elefrost is in the game, we're definitely known for auto-weaving. You have a perfectly massive window to weave autos in, even though your autos are slow. You got the CC to weave them. This is when, at the point where your clear actually becomes really good. Now that we're running Fire Blossom, you pop a right click, you hit the AoE, you dash, you hit the AoE, they're all dead. Your entire, all of the camps are dead at that point. Then we're going into Kyrus. You can also going Broken Will here. But mostly, I think you're just going to go Curious, or you can swap the Curious and Void Helm in this build. Up to you. Then I'm going Tainted Guard. Still doesn't really do a ton of damage, so the Tainted Guard here is actually really good for that. It helps deal with the ADCs as well. And then we're just going into Void Helm. Or again, if we flopped with the Curious, you can also just go Curious here. It's really up to the user. I just find that this is the order I most commonly go in. And last, but certainly not least, Omeda's only original in the jungle. I went with a bit of a interesting build for this video, but hey. So the pros is he's very flexible. You can go full HP build with Sapphires, Overlord, Basilisk, normal HP items. You can go Assassin, which is the most common build with the Overlord, or sorry, with what's the Ortis, that's what it's called. Ortis, Mind Razor, Augmentation, Tectonic Mallet. Or you can go a build similar to what I have here, which I think is an interesting build. He is super snowbally. His ult is the definition of snowballing. You kill people in your ult, you gain permanent physical power. You do that a lot, you have a lot of physical power. Go figure. He is a bit more snowbally if you're going an Assassin build with the Ortis. But he still can snowball regardless either way. He has an amazing teamfight ultimate. Even the people you are not ulting are interrupted by this thing. You have just spawned a massive wall that your team can walk through and the enemy cannot. Both in and outside of it. Now his cons, he has kind of low CC. He only has his stun, and his stun does require you be in melee range. It gets a lot of no-regs, which is incredibly frustrating. I think this is one of the more frustrating characters to play in the game right now. For that reason particularly. And most of the time, it is very rare to get a more than one person stun off with this character. He also has virtually no verticality. You can kind of use your ult if you target someone on the higher ground, but that's the only verticality you're going to get. And it's a bit awkward to pull off. It can be a struggle for Zarus. Now, I'm going with a very uncommon build. I don't think I've ever even seen anyone run this build outside of me. It's Ice-Scorn Talons. Ice-Scorn Talons is actually pretty common on Zarus, more so in the offlane than in jungle. You're locking someone in a small area, you're popping Ice-Scorns, they're trapped where you're fighting with your Ice-Scorns, which is a massive power buff for you. I'm going Mutilator. The Omnivamp is very strong. The HP damage is strong. You're getting some CDR. It's a fairly good tempo first item. Then I'm going into Basilisk. The item's just undeniably OP. We're getting more CDR. Then I'm going Citadel. So this is at the point where I'm really solidifying that I'm going Bruisery, and then I'm going to go tank from the items on after this. Whether you decide to go different items, this is the point where you're becoming a tank. You're getting your physical armor online, as well as taking physical armor away from other people. So we're really focused on helping our team deal with these tanks, with the added bonus of, hey, we can still execute backliners because we have that 10% HP threshold on our spear, and we're ulting, in theory ulting, and then popping Ice-Scorn. So we are still doing a lot of damage to backliners. Then, you guessed it, I'm going Curious. This character struggles with Zarus, this character struggles with Gideon and Gadget. So we're looking to mitigate that, and then again, we're in there like swimwear. We need Stonewall. So similar to many other junglers that we've talked about here today, if we're in there, we want that stun to get a window to do what we want to do. One more time before I end the video, thank you all so much for watching. A lot of this, everything except for the intro was ad-libbed, including this. This is also ad-libbed. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something, whether you're a new player or a long-time player looking for some new builds to try, looking, you know, maybe to connect that missing link. This is my first time really taking a dive at educational content, and I have no clue what I'm doing. So if you're ever going to leave feedback on any one of my videos, please make it this one. I would like to improve and make more content like this in the future. With that being said, there should be 2 videos on the screen right now. Thank y'all for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and that's all for me. Bears out. Peace.